Welcome to the TotalAcre podcast. I'm your host, C.R. Siebold. This podcast is all about helping growers unlock their potential. We aim to bring listeners agronomic insights, valuable educational interviews, real-world strategies that optimize yield and maximize ROI. This show is going to explore innovative practices, creative strategies, and breakthrough products with people that are shaping the industry, all through engaging and inspiring stories. Who better to learn from than the legendary world champion David Hula, Randy Dowdy, and Alex Harrell? Because in farming and in life, iron always sharpens iron. And the best way to grow or get better is to continually be learning, networking with peers, have access to industry leaders, and the tools, tips, and tricks, and overall quality of information. Knowledge is power. Tune in, hit play. Let's unlock your farm's potential together.
Welcome, Commodity Classic 2025 here in Denver, Colorado. Got a great group here. Chad Siebold with the TotalAcre podcast. This is new. You guys are second guests on. Welcome. We got Dave Sender, Shawn Feikema out of, I'm gonna say Minnesota. So if you get a little of these accents rolling here today, you may not understand everything. You might have to have that subscript, right?
Yeah. That's right.
And then obviously King David here as well.
From Virginia, talk a little bit slower. But how come we weren't the first podcast, man? I'm competitive.
I think it was your schedule, man. I called you.
Yeah.
But it is so cool to have you all here. Thanks for making time. And I know, listen, this is one of the things when you talk about King David. You've been doing this for a while. By the way, we didn't make an official announcement. This is the decade of dominance. This is 10 years he's held the world record for corn production. So 623 LBM.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Probably in part to working with some great people, right?
Oh my goodness. I think back, we started running SoilWarrior in 2018. So yields have only done one thing since then, go uphill.
That's right. Well, and think about, when you're talking strip tilling, right? You guys are doing things different. Shawn, up in Minnesota.
Yep.
You got soil temperatures different than David, right?
Yeah.
And the way you do things, obviously a bit different. But when you look at things, Dave, and I think he's running I wrote it down, a 45-40. It can always be bigger. It can always be better. But what do you like when you look at the marketplace and conditions that are across the U.S. when you're talking strip tilling? What do you like?
Well, personally, for me, it's just the flexibility you have with the machine like that, regardless of soil types, regardless of temperatures, latitudes where you're at, what kind of weather conditions are thrown at you. I think it gives you just a lot of flexibility from a farming standpoint.
Well, talk about flexibility, Shawn.
Yeah.
Like your operation's different than David's,
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit at lunch the other day about, we farm in muck heavy dirt, right? And for us to have the opportunity to be able to go out, we don't want to go out there when it's wet, but we can do it if we have to. And we have to do it in the fall usually. But we have to have flexibility because the weather is always throwing us something that we didn't see coming, right? So
100%.
That's the big reason we run the SoilWarrior. It's just for that flexibility.
I got to tell you, David, he's not a TotalAcre member yet. I haven't seen him enrolled as a member.
I talked to Callie the other day.
Did you?
All right,
Yes,
all right.
Hey, doesn't she have a voice though?
Yeah. Southern Belle.
That's right.
Well, David, you talk about flexibility on your operation too. Getting in the field early is what we talk about, right? Getting some of that stuff out quick. What's been the game changer? You said you've been using SoilWarrior since 2018, which is, if my math's right, for the last 7-8 years.
Yeah.
Been the yield champ for the last 10. So obviously there's some secret sauce there.
Yeah, well, when you think about SoilWarrior, strip tilling and all, there's two areas in which they do it. Y'all can do it in the fall, and if you're putting out fertilizer and you got heavy ground, that gives you an opportunity. We can get some work done. Mm-hmm. On the East Coast, sandier soils, we can't do that. When you talk about muck, that's the stuff when you walk in the cow pasture and get stuck on your foot, right? No. So we got sand, so we can't always do that kind of, get some echo in here.
Yep.
But we don't do the stuff in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
We got to wait and do it in the springtime.
Sure.
We haven't done any strip tilling yet.
Okay.
We've been wet. So we don't want to do it wet because then we're going to create some problems down the road, get some compaction in their soils. So we wait till things start drying up. We're going to probably next week we'll start some when we get back from the class. I'm done traveling. We'll get some stuff done. And that's when, we run a 3 culture system.
Yep.
And, so I think the neat thing about that is you got to have speed too to mix that fertilizer up. When I was growing and you did any tillage, you had to go slow.
Yep.
Now you got something, you go fast. We cover some acres at the prairie.
Yep,
And,
exactly.
We run a 40 foot. I know you run.
Yep, 40 footer. Yep,
Yeah.
same machine.
Yeah. And then we got the capacity of different bins and products. So
Right.
variable rates.
Variable rates huge. Yeah, and it's been nice to see over the years more and more growers doing variable rate, because even within the last 5 years, we've seen growers do that so much more than previous to that. Very few of them did it, and it always kind of blew my mind. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that technology and really maximize the system?
Dave, I gotta say, right? Like you look at unlock. Our theme this year went from growing champions to unlocking potential, right? And think about that, right? When you look at, it's not horsepower, it's not iron all the time, but if you have a way to maximize ROI, Dave, when you look at having equipment that can do these things, that change your operation, that help you unlock potential, talk a little bit about that if you guys would.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about before, as a kid, we were doing full tills. Then we went away from that, started no-tilling corn and soybeans. Then in '86, we got into no-tilling wheat. Then a never-till program. I got a chance to meet Brent Berlin doing some Pioneer stuff. Now he's part of SoilWarrior. He said, "Hey, Dave, you really need to look at the soil. Like, Brent, we're not tillers." He's like, "Yeah, but this is different." So he introduced it to us like, holy smoke, we're just doing this little zone.
Yeah.
Now it's just giving us the ability to do so much more with less equipment. Now the only downside is we need what? Horsepower.
Yeah.
As you go, 24-foot disc, whatever, doesn't take much. 40-foot SoilWarrior. I know you got some big tractors there or something.
Yeah, we of course, the heavier dirt pulls a little harder, so it takes 600 horse for us, but we're also running 9.5 miles an hour, to get the acres covered.
Right.
So,
Right. Well, I gotta jab this out there, right? Because National No-Till Farmer of the Year, Feikema, right?
Me?
Yeah. I think that's what's next, right, for you. You got to get up here on the leaderboard here. Like, come on, what's
Okay.
next? I'm talking competition, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to be next to the champion, what's next?
But he told me I can't ever get there, though.
Okay, I'm just throwing that out
He
there.
told me I have to get my corn up in 10 days. Otherwise I can't get even 350.
We're just helping you unlock potential, right?
I'd have to play in June to do that.
Well, the short season got short then, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Oh,
I'm
my goodness.
throwing the gauntlet out. I know you like
That's right.
competition, right?
Oh, I do like competition. I don't mind getting beat, but I don't like being second.
I want to talk a little bit about product, right? I know there's some cover crop products or attachments you're looking at, and when you look at some of the incentives that are out in the marketplace, I mean, especially up in Minnesota, right? You talk about nitrogen runoff, you talk about the soil. I mean, there's some wild stuff out there, but if you look at cover crops, that's certainly a part of what we can do to be able to have access to certain incentives, right? But talk a little bit about your new attachment you got coming out with.
Yeah, so you're right. So we're seeing that year over year, cover crops becoming more and more of a subject. Absolutely, there's more and more incentives out there. It can vary from state to state, so I always encourage growers to look into what's available. But for us, as that interest continues to grow, it's something we need to take a serious look at. So, like for example, this year we developed and implemented a specific cover crop system that traditionally we would have had. A very popular choice would have been our triple bin system, where growers would have the ability to run fertilizer in 2 of the tanks and then put a cover crop in the 3rd bin and either put it on the row or between the rows. But now we developed a system that's specific to the cover crops. And you don't sacrifice, I guess I hate to say it this way, but you don't sacrifice any of that fertilizer capacity.
Sure.
So you're still able to maintain fertilizer capacity and now have an additional tank specifically designed for your cover crops.
Maybe saving a trip across the field potentially, right?
And that's how we look at it. Right? Currently, we've been running a separate pass, right, to drill that rye or camelina or whatever we're doing. This is going to completely free up a man and another tractor, a drill, and it does all those things. So it's a pretty exciting development, I think.
Yeah.
Wait a second. You said rye as a cover crop, and then there was another word you said. Right?
Camelina.
You probably
What
never
the
heard of that, have you?
Camelina? Sounds like a drink or something.
I wish it was. I'd probably be able
The
to sell it
University
for
of Minnesota's huge on it. They love it.
They love that stuff.
Yeah.
We've thrown it in with as a cover crop, blend just slightly with some rye. You'd have to ask my wife why. She's the one that comes up with all that stuff. But we have also tried to grow it as a crop, but it doesn't winter over as well as they think it does. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So what is camelina as far as describe kind of what it is?
So I guess the way I'll describe it is it's an incredibly small seeded oil seed. So like, I'm thinking it's smaller than canola. It's tiny, like the ballpoint pen tiny. And we were going to try and do some relay cropping with it. We were going to try and get some soybeans between rows and stuff like that, but it didn't make the winter. But they're really after it for the high oil. It's 45% oil.
Okay.
So that's what they're after for whether it's SAF or
Yes.
I'm thinking there's going to be some new crop or something we're going to start growing.
that's what they're trying.
That's
what they're trying to do. But
So you talk about cover crops, and then Brent Berlin, he introduced it to me like not cover crops, but it's like, why don't you use it to plant soybeans?
Yeah.
I'm like, we're thinking about here. You run a drill to plant soybeans, and what do we talk about? We need to simulate these.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way I'm going to run a SoilWarrior to plant soybeans. But when I was in Iowa doing the TotalAcre TV show, we were at Iowa State, looked at stuff, but then we went to Brent's cousins up there.
Yep.
And they had a soybean field planted with their SoilWarrior. And I was like amazed at how that crop looked.
Yeah. You haven't planted?
I have not.
Yet,
We
yet.
almost did in 19 when we could not get out the field very well, and a planter was not an option.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, maybe just to get in before prevent plant, we were going to try, but we never did end up. I think it rained or something. We never
I
got it
think
done.
it's an option. A lot of guys are still real hesitant to try it yet.
Yeah.
But so far, the times we've done it and the tests, if you will, and we've done side-by-side trials, and the performance and yields are identical to the planted beans so far. So it's something there. I always laugh at some of the guys that have done it because they say the first time when the beans start coming up, they first thought is, why did I do this? But then as everything comes in and starts filling in, it actually comes out really nice. And I've had customers do it, and every time they've been happy with the results.
All I know is I walked in the field and I'm like, this didn't look like what I had envisioned. And then I think about the muck you got. You like to run a drill. If you can run that SoilWarrior, because the cool thing about it is, all the weight transfers to the back.
Yep.
I mean, you explained that much better than I could. But, the wheels are
Basically.
they're for transport.
Yep.
Going down the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you deal with muck, I don't know. I just thought it might.
I don't know either. We haven't tried it. We haven't dared to try it.
It's one of those things where maybe you try it on 20 acres.
That's
or 40
what we
acres
should
or
do.
something.
Yep, that's what we should do.
There you go.
Well, our problem is we get done SoilWarrior for corn and whatever beans. We clean the machine. Tractors are hooked to something else.
Yeah.
Last thing we want to do is go back and go get it all dirty
Yeah,
again.
right.
But maybe I should even myself.
Maybe we will try it this year.
One of the ancillary benefits, though, I think you both, I don't know if you have, I know you have, is taking advantage of, if you look at those incentives, maybe not cover cropping. If you're not a cover cropper up north, I know soil temperatures, right? No till, right? Some of my guys that want to tilt dirt up north, be able to get that ground temp changed. But there are those advantages, and I know, David, you've done some of this. Shawn, I'd be curious if you have, is as a no-tiller or as a cover cropper, you're unlocking some of these premiums that are out there for sustainably sourced grains. Is that something you could advise the group? Is there something that SoilWarrior, are you doing anything with anybody as far as partnering with on no-till? Are you doing anything that's unlocking some of these incentives?
We've done a few projects that we've worked on from a cover crop standpoint. Now, whether we're going to get the money for some of those now, I don't know.
Sure.
But the other one that we've looked at and we've done a little dabbling with is, on some low carbon and score intensity type stuff. That market has a real potential.
We're going to hear Ms. Rollins talking a little bit about how that 45Z is going to unlock some stuff.
Sure. So we've done a little work with some companies just trying to do some what do you want to call them, like test programs to try and see how they're working out and what they're doing. So we've done a lot of CI score type things. I think there's some serious dollars per acre that can be had there.
Well, in this market too, right, Feikema? In this market, we got to figure out ways to be able to get things rolling, right?
Exactly.
And I think, and David, I know, has looked at them, right? It's they're not fluff, tree hugging type stuff. There are things that are really going to move the bottom line. I think where SoilWarrior is at that no-till, that is certainly a qualifying piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. And I know you've done some of that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, I know. Our proximity to the Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ground zero for water quality.
Yep.
Yeah.
And not only do the local soil and water district offer programs, and you got NRCS, and then you got the carbon trade.
Yep.
So there's just so many opportunities for guys. Farmers in general, we think about cash grain. Well, then now, if you can get a cover crop in and get paid $90 or $110 an acre
Yep.
for that,
Yep.
now that's a cash grain crop.
Yeah, exactly.
And then all the secondary benefits from that. You know, you're doing cover crop for reasons. Some parts that do it, they're holding the world together. Some do it trap nutrients. We're in the sandy soils.
Oh, sure.
We're trying to trap nutrients. But then, oh, by the way, there are benefits that you got biology on those roots. You kill those cover crop roots, you plant your corn or soy. Now the biology goes right straight to your crop.
Yep.
And then you get benefits on top of it.
Yeah, well, and you know, I was at a session this morning that they talked about a little bit of that kind of stuff, of unlocking that ROI, right, of this
Sure.
type of product, of these type of incentives. And, you know, I said to my wife, I said, you know, after we got done, I said, the thing that we all forget is that these are practices that make us more money anyway, right? I mean, that's what I love about the practices that we're doing, is because
Absolutely.
they make more money for us anyway.
Absolutely,
And then
Shawn.
if we can take and, hey, it's already something I'm doing. How exciting is that when you can just say, yeah, hey, now I'm ready to go for these programs when they do come to fruition.
Well, listen to this. This is going to not blow your mind because we've been working with y'all for a long time. But now that working with David and some of the people he's had a chance to be around, the YMS software within TotalAcre gives a perfect opportunity to capture all those things along the way. And now all of a sudden you almost have within our system, within YMS, a suite of opportunities to be able to take advantage of those opportunities, working with folks like Arva Intelligence and others to be able to actually have that so we don't have to do all the legwork. That's what I really don't enjoy, is all the paperwork. But if we have a system that makes it easy, and now I can say, I want that one, or I qualify for that one. I know you did a pretty good job with that with some of the folks you're working with. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, you get information, but then once you have it on a platform where it's almost like going off a menu saying, hey, I want this, this, and this, and this. And then how do you look at menus? Sometimes we look at menus on the right side. How much is this meal going to cost me? Not do I have a filet, taste, but maybe only have a hamburger budget.
Yeah, okay.
Now we look at the right side and see what offers we get. Then we can pick and choose. And if we have a platform that can show, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what, you could buy ground. You could get money for nutrients that are in the soil, and then reduce carbon, and then now we're getting cover crops. So it's just only going to expand. And you mentioned something earlier. Things that we're doing makes good sense. It's making us money. I look back at when the Chesapeake Bay program started, middle 80s. What was happening in the early 80s on the East Coast? Drought, fertilizer prices. Now they weren't where they are today, but we were buying fertilizer and commodity prices were dropping. It's like a big cycle.
Right.
But wasn't it cool that, hey, we could be more efficient with our fertilizers? Oh, by the way, maybe we'll side dress or we'll do a strip till or something. We'll pick up more bushels. So it's just cool that the economics fall in line with the agronomics.
Exactly.
And then, we're saving the environment too.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Ancillary benefits. But surely, Dave, when you start looking at, and David, when you look at early adopters, obviously the TotalAcre group is almost sometimes bleeding edge, right, with the technology and the products that we work with.
Right.
But being in 8 years ago, it maybe was a little more cutting. It's becoming more commonplace, strip tilling. So maybe leave us with some information on why should folks that are looking at strip tilling, maybe that never have before, I'll let you start, Dave, maybe haven't really in that investment, right, looking on the right side of the menu, maybe talk about, Dave, what are one thing that you can leave them with if you're starting to look at it, why should you start?
Well, it's kind of been something we've been touching on all along here, and it's that return on investment. And I guess when I'm working and talking with growers, it's at the end of the day, it's all about the bottom line. And am I making money, and if so, how much? And you talk about return on investment. I'll talk about just what does it cost to grow that crop and so forth. So if you can reduce your inputs and still grow the same crop, or perhaps even a better crop,
Sure.
you're gonna at the end of the day, you're gonna put more money in your pocket. And to stay in business, regardless if you're farming or if you're making soil warriors, you got to still have some money left over at the end of the year.
Sure.
To keep yourself in business.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, right?
The biggest
Long
thing
term.
is really focus on the dollars and cents, because early on when we talk to a lot of growers, and it's changed a little bit, like you say, there's so much more information out there now, so growers are a lot more educated than they used to be, but it's still a very common question for us is it's all focused on yields right to begin with, and I try to have them focus on, let's talk about the dollars and cents, the yields will follow.
I love it. Well, and I think, for the folks that are not a part of TotalAcre, and we've worked together for quite some time now. I think I would challenge you too to look at what Dave just said is, in these markets, you have to spend a little money to make money, but you gotta know where to spend that money to make it.
True.
And in this market, if you're throwing good money after bad, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Won't make it long. So maybe talk about that, Shawn. Like what are you changing this year? What are you looking at the good money after bad? Where's that good investment? Without endorsing a product, right?
Yeah, right. Well, after having, sitting with David here a couple of weeks ago, I've got to change my whole program now.
I thought he was going to say he was going to go spend the money to become a member of TotalAcre. But
probably will happen too. But
okay.
I guess from the standpoint of somebody looking at this option and what to try.
Mm-hmm.
When we started in the fall of 2016 making strips. There was nobody else out there. Very few guys out there doing it. And today, there's so many more guys doing it. Get on the phone and talk to some of those guys and go out and meet them. Go see how it's working for them, and then get them to see if they'll come and try it for you.
Sure.
I mean, it's really, there's enough machines running around.
Right,
now.
and to that point, the really cool thing, at least from my perspective, is guys that strip till, or say farmers that strip till, they love talking to other farmers about strip till. I've never had one of them that has never wanted to share that information and kind of their journey, if you will, on what they've done. And that's, for me, that's just been, I love to see that. It's guys out there educating each other, and it's a really
Does that sound familiar, David?
Yeah, that's kind of what TotalAcre is all about. Growers and network, that's what Dowdy wanted to do.
Yeah.
But when I think about a grower wanting to start in the strip till, you're right. I mean, I'm in Virginia. We've been doing it for a while. There's probably isn't but a half a dozen strip tills out there, strip till machines. And growers say, well, man, I'm looking at that menu. It's like, holy smoke, look at their investment. Well, you can't always buy new. You just go out, there's used SoilWarriors out there.
Yep.
You can look at that. You don't have to have a big one with the implement guidance nowadays. If you're using a 16-row planter, get an 8-row machine.
Yeah, right.
Get a 12-row.
Yes.
That's what we started out with.
Yep.
But I oftentimes share with growers, get the machine, use the fertilizer. Now we know it takes X amount of pounds to make a bushel of corn. They've been feeding their soil for years. You got to pay for the machine, reduce your fertilizer bill, because now I know without a doubt, I can sit here and say, I can reduce my fertilizer by 40% and not sacrifice yield. Now I can't do that for 10 years, because at some point in time I got to replace it. But we can do that for a while, pay the cost of that machine down. Once it's paid for, now we can really start playing.
Yep.
But the other thing is, it's not just for fertilizer. You guys in the Midwest that deal with residue, we can help remove residue just in a zone. We can also add other benefits. You feed biology, humic acids. We can do the fertilizer, we can do slow release, we can do, phosphorus, potash, micronutrients. And I'm a big guy for micros in there.
Mm-hmm.
Just put it where the roots are going to be. Who cares where the ground where the roots aren't going to be?
Right.
And if you're a corn, soybean guy and you plant in those same strips, who cares? Just put it where the fertilizer's there and make your crops.
Right.
So, when I think about it, Chad, growers have so many chances. And, we talk about TotalAcre helping, but just a network of growers learning and exchanging information. And the data that the YMS talks about can reinforce what Shawn and them are doing. He's not even a member yet. He's already doing it.
He's already
great stuff.
Right.
Some of it. I don't know. Well,
I'm going to tell you something that he told me offline. He said he's taking down that 623. That's what he said. He said he's going to take you down.
We'll be a cheerleader.
There's a couple other benefits too when you talk about all that, and I think there's a few things when you talk about the soil health, and we see it in a lot of areas up kind of closer to home too when you talk about a lot of the erosion and stuff.
Sure.
And it's really hard to quantify how many dollars are leaving your fields.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Those are I call them intangibles. It's really hard to measure that, but that's all part of that whole picture. Right.
Well,
absolutely.
And from that as well, I mean, not only is it the dollars worth of dirt, but we all know what's attached to that dirt, right? It's your P and your K is all laying in the ditch. We always wonder why the grass grows so well in the highway ditches. Well, it's all the field dirt.
That's right. That's
Some
right.
parts of the country, they mow that and feed the cows too.
We want a little of that too.
But now, outside of, you run the 3-culture system.
Yes, correct.
And I run the 3-culture system. What other options out there are today?
So we do have a shank option. So
Okay.
I'll say it this way. So probably 10, 15 years ago, somewhere in there, traditionally we were always a coulter-based operation. But we started getting more and more requests for growers wanting to put down anhydrous. There's still big pockets up in if you want to say the traditional corn belt, where there's still quite a bit of anhydrous use. So we started doing a shank unit. As time rolled on, we were still getting requests. Guys love the coulter system because it provides that flexibility and versatility. But sometimes they'd say, I'd still like to do a shank. So here about 3 years ago, we released our edge row unit, which has the same footprint that you two are accustomed to with that 3 wavy coulters. But you can also do a pretty quick little conversion and run a knife on it if a guy was inclined to do so. So I would say percentage-wise, probably 80% at least, maybe it's even higher, than that are still running just coulters only.
Sure.
But there are a handful that run some knives.
It's nice to have options for sure.
Yeah.
To have the option, yeah.
What when you think of options that are out there? I'm going to talk finance because I'm a numbers guy, right? Not all things make sense. Is there any type of promotional thing that you're running with financing, right? Because if you're looking at opportunities, you guys do anything in-house? You know I'm a numbers guy.
I get it.
So you guys do anything special like that?
So we work with a couple key lenders about doing different either purchase financing options, lease to own options.
Sure.
One thing that we offer that I think is pretty unique is if we do have growers, kind of point you made earlier, David, about growers wanting to try it and kind of dip their toe into it rather than going in head first, we have a rental program.
Okay.
And we structure it where there's a minimum amount of acres. I won't bore you with those details, but we do take a good chunk of those rental dollars if a grower decides to purchase a machine, that we allow them to roll that into some financing.
Okay.
So there's incentives there, and we even do some programs that are out there. We do some sort of matching too, depending on the program. So like maybe some carbon programs or some conservation programs where we do some sort of matching when growers come in and buy
Very
a
cool,
machine.
yep.
So there's a bunch of those different types of things.
Well, I know some of the TotalAcre members up in the Delmarva,
Yeah.
they got together in Delaware, Maryland, and y'all brought a machine down, and they were just running it around.
Yeah.
And then I think at some point in time they couldn't figure out where it was because it's like, all right,
It was sitting in your shed.
Hey, who's got I'm afraid not. That would have been nice too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, and when growers just get together, because one guy could try it, but he might not be able to have the number of acres, and then the neighbor, because that's when you're and Chad mentioned the cutting edge or the bleeding edge. We always want to be on the cutting edge. We don't want to be on the bleeding edge.
Right.
Sometimes it's not so bad, but when we first started doing it, nobody was doing it in the area.
Right.
So I don't know, just like y'all.
Yeah,
and people are looking,
Yep.
and they're skeptical, like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden they start seeing some of the results you're going, and then it's nothing like taking a picture of a yield monitor. Oh no, we didn't play with the joystick.
No.
But, you show that, and it's like, okay, and then your co-ops, then they start figuring it out. Like, okay, now we got to manage a system to help support what you're doing, because you might have normally been doing fertilizer at a different time.
Right.
So everybody, all the partners got to work together.
Yeah.
And that's
Speaking
the
of
cool-
that, I'm gonna put Dave on the spot, but you guys are gonna put him either under the bus or highlight him here. As a producer, we break stuff, right?
Yep.
So talk about the dealer network, right? Longevity, parts, wear, tear. We're running 8-9 mile an hour. We're turning dirt, right? So what's the dealer network look? I'm not gonna let you answer this, Dave, because I know how you're gonna answer. But as you're supporting producers, what's it like to be able to break something? How do we get parts service?
Well,
What's it like?
I can tell you for our first experience with it running the SoilWarrior, they're saying we want to be going fast. And when I think about rocks, you don't want to hit a rock going fast. So, we're running stuff out, and as we're going, things are going good at the home farm. We moved to the western and the central farm. We got a few rocks. A couple things started breaking. It's like, whoa, what's up? And then, we're replacing blades and some hubs. Then we get to the western farm, and then I'm like, hey, something's going on. So I'm riding on the side-by-side, take a video, and then Brent, I send him the video. It's like, whoa, stop the machine. What it was cheap blades. The manufacturer didn't have the right blades. It didn't meet specs.
Yep.
They came down, replaced the blades. We hadn't had a problem since. Now we're on a program where they come out, service their machine every year. I am a firm believer we do that with their valley irrigation. We do it with the strip till SoilWarrior. We don't have problems when we do that. And then the maintenance. So, we call. We got a great dealer network, and I know you probably got a much better one because there's not but so many in my area.
Yeah, right.
So we come out. Greg will come down and check things out, and he'll call. Hey, what do you need? I don't know what I need. This is what I have. And so it comes up. But I will say, it is built to handle speed, and it's built for Minnesota. They got rocks. So it's like outside of that one blemish, and it wasn't a SoilWarrior problem. It was, somebody downstream, and they were behind it and fixed it, and we were squared away. And then, we traded that one in later, got another one, and man, just waiting for another one.
Yeah.
Same question. What do you think?
Yeah. So first off, I would not be strip tilling today if it was not for the service and parts of these guys. I mean, Kevin Keene probably held my hand more than my wife did for that year. Just helping me get going because he just didn't trust what you were doing. There wasn't anybody to call, and they were there all the time. From a parts standpoint, yeah, we break stuff. We're pulling that thing 9 miles an hour, and our rocks are not this stuff. Our rocks are Volkswagens and bigger, and so stuff literally flies apart. But we had a similar situation as David had. These guys came out, got it taken care of. They're as good as it gets.
Beautiful.
And it doesn't hurt that the technician lives 20 miles straight west of me, and I know how to get in his garage
Really
where his stuff is. So I could just say, hey, I need some parts. Yeah, they're in the back corner of the garage. Go grab them.
Well, we know it's an important piece, Dave, right? At the end of the day, we can't run the way we need to run, then, probably not something. So I would say it's a testament to the way you've done business the last few years as far as building your network out. So we're kind of coming to a close here, but I want to talk about two more things.
Sure.
One is, competition, right? We always talk about that. But, when we talk about changing from growing champions within TotalAcre to unlocking potential, working with folks like you is everything to us. Working inside of YMS and the technology that we have, we can see the results when folks are using products and services that work better. So I love that. So send us some new members to work with. We'll send you some growers to be able to kind of trial that product. But I think unlocking potential is what you guys are all about. Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, Dave.
Yeah, thank
Feikema, thanks for coming in. It was good to see you.
No problem.
Mr. Hula.
You too?
Yeah, man.
Oh, as always, it's a pleasure.
Oh,
David,
this is good. Yeah, David. This is cool.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in today to this episode of the TotalAcre podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed it, you liked the conversation, be sure to subscribe. You know the drill. Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Go give us a click, give us a like. Until next time, though, keep pushing forward. We hope that you found something unique, something powerful here that might help you unlock your farm's potential. We look forward to seeing you next week. Be safe. Talk more here soon on the next TotalAcre podcast.